at this point. Open it up. All right, let's start the meeting. Councilman Mike McHugh, if you could please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure thing, Mayor. One sec. I'll get some help. Boys, you want to come help?
Oh yeah,
Oh, it's better.
Look at the flag. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. Thank you, McHugh family. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person with communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. NJSA 10:4-8B. Due to the COVID-19 situation, the Borough of Fairhaven's municipal facilities are closed to the public. This meeting is being presented through the Zoom meeting platform and being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this council meeting of April 27, 2020 is available by call-in phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until public question comment time, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question and comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of meetings include the scheduled meetings sent to the Asbury Park Press at 2 Times, the Hub, and the Star Ledger on January 9, 2020. Posted on the bulletin, posted on the Borough website, the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. Allison, roll call, please.
Allison, you're on mute.
Council members Banningham, Commissioner Keefe,
Here.
Koch,
Here.
McHugh,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Also on mute.
Here.
Swanson.
We lost Susan.
I think we lost her. She's off screen.
Yeah.
I'll send her a text just to let her know she's off if she doesn't know.
Okay.
Mayor, you're also on mute.
I got a dog barking in the background, so get ready. All right. Tree removal.
I want to hear the crying baby.
KM Hughes, 19 Hants Road. Has then everybody had a chance to review it? Any issues? Every tree gets its day in court. All in favor of granting the tree removal permit?
Aye.
Do we have somebody move it?
I need a movement. So Betsy, you moved it. May I have a second? Councilman Q, Rodriguez, Keith?
Second.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The tree at 119 Hants Road goes down. All right, wonderful. Next is the termination of drainage easement at 901 River Road. Sal, this is you?
Yes. Last summer, this was discussed. I'm not on mute, am I? You hear me?
You good?
Last summer, this was discussed and approved by council. There was an easement that was put on this property at 901 River Avenue in the 1960s. It's a drainage easement. It's really to the county's drainage system, but both the county and the borough were named as the grantees in the easement. We approved the concept last summer, but they got bogged down with the county in language to replace the easement in the location where the drainage pipe is actually located. It's not located in the location of the easement that we're going to terminate. They have since worked everything out with the county. There's a final document in place. So assuming that everyone agrees, at the next meeting, we would have a resolution to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a termination of the easement along with the county. And then the county will get a new easement for the actual drainage pipe. And that, I don't know why we're a party to it. Rich Gardella actually approved last summer, indicated that we had no interest in drainage easement at all, so he had no objection to this. So if with your permission, we would put it on next meeting for action, and then the document could be signed.
Sal, from a legal perspective, is there any benefit to waiting until the new easement goes through before agreeing to terminate this easement?
Well, that's what the county's doing, because they're the grantee in the actual easement, the new easement. So,
Okay.
yeah. And they're party to this termination as well, the county.
Okay. And if I understand, that property itself is actually just a vacant lot.
Yeah, apparently there was a house on it at one time, and this easement that's being vacated ran right under the house. There was nothing in it. But yeah, I think it's vacant now.
Okay. Mayor, you're on mute again.
Yes, my public comments on agenda items, Mayor, motion open.
So
So moved.
Okay, Teresa, open it up to our 17 attendees. If you'd like to ask a question about our agenda items today, please use the raise your hand button. Delay.
Can we remind them, how do you raise your hand if you're calling it from a touchtone? Is it *9?
Yes,
Star
it is.
9.
Thank you.
There's only one person calling in from a telephone. Everyone else is online via video.
Okay.
Thank you.
Audio. And I see no hands at this juncture.
All right, seeing none, going once, going twice.
I'll raise my hand, Mr. Mayor, if there's nobody else.
You'd like to make a public comment on agenda item?
On behalf of a resident email that I received, again from Ruth Blazer, I'd just like to echo her questions so that they're in the public record, and I will encourage Ms. Blazer and anybody else who has questions to see if there's some impediment to coming to council meeting virtually. But in the interest of, you know, getting through the questions and concerns on let's see, on resolution 2020-85, use of storm reserve funds. What is the amount in the fund, and is the entire amount available for the uses we would be authorizing?
Teresa?
The last, I had to actually look at the total amount in that trust, but I believe it was around $48,000 when we started this. And it is basically is our storm reserve, and we keep it for generally any type of storm. But the state of New Jersey opened up the storm reserve to use for COVID expenses, and it's all available for COVID expenses. And we can also add to this particular fund as part of our 2020 budget if we see fit to do so.
Okay. Next question, Megan?
Yes, just a moment. With respect to 2020-87, what is the dispatch ILSA?
That's an interlocal service agreement with the Monmouth County for our dispatch.
So it increases the availability of that expense. Or is that a payment under the temporary? This is a payment under the temporary budget, Teresa?
That's payment.
Understood.
You lost me.
Was that me who
Yes,
wavered to that?
Yes, that's a payment to Monmouth County.
I think Teresa's freezing. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll say that again. That is the payment from the borough to Monmouth County for dispatch service.
Yes.
Okay. there was a bill list item question. It looks like there's a January bill from Serenian in the amount of, it was just shy of $11,000. And the question, if I understand it, is regarding the time period of that pertains to. And I imagine it reflects a stack of invoices.
It's for all the work that Mike Edwards did on the fair housing, starting on January 2nd, and I believe it goes through the 30th.
Okay, and the same question with respect to bond counsel. That bond counsel attorney's fees are in relation to last year's bonds? Teresa, we lost.
Yes, as a matter of fact, that was, they're still being paid out of the 19 budget. They're still being paid out of the 19 budget. And that was a oversight. I guess it was a bill that came in that we had missed from the total bond services billing. And that was just a follow-up that either they billed us late for, or we missed that we hadn't paid the whole thing.
Okay. That I think is the bulk of Ms. Blazer's questions. Just on behalf of myself, with respect to the Storm Reserve Fund, I'm just curious, contextually wise, the amount of money in there. Are we talking 10,000, 50,000, 500,000?
It's our Storm Reserve Trust, and I believe there was 48,000 when we started COVID. I can go back and look in my email for the exact balance.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's just from my memory, Meg.
Okay, and will we authorize each payment out of that fund as it comes, or does this permit a blanket authorization? It's
blanket. The state expanded the use of COVID, but they suggested that we pass a resolution to memorialize that. So the governing body we were taking advantage of that allowance. And when you look at your bill list and you see something that's charged to that trust fund line, if it looks like, perfect example is the reimbursements to the chief that's on tonight's meeting. That's all COVID related supplies, and they're all charged to that trust fund line.
Okay, thank you.
Is it all good? All right. Approval of minutes, April 6th, 2020, regular meeting. May I have a motion offered?
So moved.
Second.
Allison, roll call, please.
For the minutes,
Yep. Yes.
council members Koch,
Yes.
Commissioner Keefe,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes,
Who offered and who seconded? There's a delay.
I did. Susan offered.
I
Betsy-
said,
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right, new business council committee reports. Councilman Banahan's not with us, the finance personnel. Councilman Christopher Keith.
Personnel committee does not have any updates. Betsy and I have been in communication regarding our borough employees. Everyone is continuing to work very hard throughout the pandemic, and we're grateful for all the extra time, energy, and effort that's being put in that it takes to engage in social distancing while continuing to work. So thank you to all of our borough employees, PD, DPW, and staff.
Wonderful. Thank you. Planning and zoning, Councilwoman Koch.
yes. Well, with respect to planning and zoning, both boards met last week. We did a group Zoom. We met with Teresa, Nick Borchinsky, our zoning officer, Jen Johnson attended, our two board attorneys, Mike Irene and Doug Kovatz attended, as well as members of both the planning and the zoning board. Our mission really at that point was to come up with a game plan for reinstituting both the planning board and the zoning board. So we're going to go ahead with virtual meetings in May. The first meeting is going to be on May 7th. That will be for the zoning board. And for both the zoning and the planning board, it will be old business in May. And then we will move on to new business in June. We also discussed some of the challenges that are associated with these virtual meetings. Moving forward, residents who are going to present an appeal to the zoning board and the planning board will have to download all of their documents in a PDF form, present it to the borough. That information will then be available online for any of the residents who've been noticed or any of the residents that have an interest in what is happening with a particular appeal. There were a couple of challenges that we discussed that are associated by this. Number one, not all residents have access to a computer or to the internet. So we would have to provide them some way with paper copies of the documents. And also we talked about what happens when new evidence is presented during a board meeting that hasn't been downloaded as a PDF to the file prior to the meeting. So both attorneys feel that that is a very manageable situation. We have a month to actually work on it because all the old business has already been filed for May. So hopefully we will have a game plan and we will be up and running with new business in June. Secondly, I did get the go-ahead for our restaurant ordinance subcommittee. We do have a meeting planned for Wednesday where we're going to come up with a timeline. So far, we've summarized the townwide survey. We've redefined many of the definitions that are present in our ordinances, and we are now ready to move on to presenting our findings in a townwide forum. But once again, we're going to have to do this forum virtually because we'd like to do it in the next few weeks. So as a result of this being the next step, we have a meeting on Wednesday night where we're going to develop a timeline and we will let the town know when we're going to do this public forum. We'll present our findings, we'll summarize our findings, and it will be an opportunity for all of our residents to actually speak to the ordinances. So we should have a date within the next couple of weeks. And so, and we'll post that information on what's happening on Facebook, on the Borough website, so everybody will know when that meeting is going to take place. And that's my conclusion.
That's good.
Very much. Fire Police OEM, Councilman McHugh.
Yes, so obviously we're still engaged with this pandemic. You know, we're in the marathon stage right now. It's, you know, the chief, first responders have been busy day in and day out. Going back early in the month, Lieutenant Townsend attended an online training by FEMA for COVID guidance and procurements under grants during periods of emergency. So there's some good lessons learned there. Also earlier in the month, the deputy coordinator for OEM attended a FEMA webinar. And also early in the month, Chief McGovern, along with the fire department, acquired some, they're like backpack fog machines. They spray disinfectants. So when our first responders do and they have transported COVID cases or any suspected cases, we can, as a town, be self-sustainable and disinfect these vehicles, the squad bays, and even inside of buildings, so we can take care of our own and clean our own vehicles, which are something like 99.9% effective. So it sprays this fine mist and it cleans everything, so the first responders don't have any additional worrisome or effort to scrub down all these machines. Of course, you know, just for my mom, who's a nurse, her perspective, stay home if you can, if you test positive. Obviously, if you do need help, try to self-transport so we don't have to put an additional burden on our first responders. But of course, they're always willing and able to help out our town. And, on behalf of all of us, we thank the first responders, the healthcare workers, and even the people staying home. As a Marine, I think of us as citizens, we're the foot soldiers. We're the people that are, doing the day in and day out and doing our duty to stay home. And every little bit does definitely help. And we'll get to some numbers later on. The chief is continuing to send weekly letters to the residents regarding the status of the COVID-19 situation. The police department has distributed PPE to first responders, and we feel confident right now with our stockpile that we are actually the chief was actually able to distribute some PPE to the DPW workers as well. We're out there, so that was a nice shared service within our town. He continues to conduct daily conferences with the New Jersey State Regional Operation and Intelligence Center, weekly conferences with county OEM and the Monmouth County Regional Health Department, and almost daily calls with the first aid captain and provide them with any information from the state. I know he's on the phone almost daily with me as well, keeping us updated what's going on. And the OEM and police continue to do daily checks on elderly residents. These are all elderly residents. So total, our active cases in Fairhaven right now are 14, which is actually 2 less than our last meeting. 22 residents in all have tested positive over the past 6 weeks. 8 have fully recovered. So it is starting to go down. And Chief, can you explain, because I know I had some people come up and ask me, sometimes the numbers that we put out aren't the same that they may see online or in the news. Can you explain why sometimes our numbers aren't exactly matching up with news reports? Thank you.
Yeah, what happens is in every town, the head law enforcement officer gets a list of every resident in Monmouth County, and it gives all the ones in Fairhaven. And then we also get a list of the people that are not quarantined or taken off the list every day. So, and also our health department has, our regional health department also has a couple that never made the list. For whatever reason, they're in charge of the investigation for it. Some simply just never made the state list. So I have information for all that. So that's how I come up with that number. I take the number of active, I take the number of not quarantined, any will say off the list or not need to be quarantined, they recovered, and I take them off. That's how come our numbers say 14 right now. Like I said, like Mike said, we have 14 active cases. We had 22 residents in town that did test positive for it, and but 8 of them have recovered fully, and most of them are already back to work. And my understanding from talking to the health department, my understanding of it, again, I talk to Greg Health Department probably every other day. And our understanding, there's nobody right now that is in a serious condition or anything. Everybody is recovered from home as far as we know. Like Mike said, we did, first day did transport a couple of residents to the hospital. And they had all the proper PPEs. I happened to go to one of the calls, and they were 100% professional and had everything they needed. And they did it very, very professional, actually during that huge rainstorm we had last week, right in the middle of it. So as always, they did a great job. But that's how those numbers are different. The county or the state's reporting the numbers that were confirmed, but they're not taking the numbers that have been not quarantined anymore and are either back at work or better. So that's why we're getting that number. So the 14 is a true number of active cases that are reported. Now, if there's 14 reported, obviously some people don't get tested, but that's the active cases from the CDC from the state. That kind of explain it, Mike?
Yeah, that was great, Chief. And I think it points out how, some towns have an OEM coordinator and a chief of police, and Chief McGovern is holding both hats right there. And we see some actually efficiency because he's managing all these numbers right there. So thank you.
Yeah, because only the police department or his designated police chief gets those actual residents and actually gets those actual numbers. Some of that might not be shared with in other towns with the OEM. Or maybe the OEM is on the health department, the chief isn't. So that's why those numbers are all over. So I'm taking the true numbers. And I spoke to Greg from our health department actually last night, I talked to him last night on Sunday, and he confirmed that right now there's 14 active cases under investigation. Everybody else was released. So that's our true number right now. And I'll also say that if you look at the numbers throughout the county, we're a little lower than most towns with the same population. So I think we're doing pretty well. Our residents are doing great. They're doing everything they're supposed to. We've had very few calls over the last 6 weeks as far as complaints about residents not social distancing or anything. Very, very few calls, really. I actually expected a lot more than very few calls. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That concludes the report, Councilman McHugh.
That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good report. Engineering, DPW, Borough Facilities, Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you. There's 3 areas, DPW, engineering, and then also facilities. I'm going to skip facilities mainly because there's nothing to report from the facility perspective. We haven't tackled any of the ongoing facilities issues. From a DPW perspective, we're still collecting brush and leaves, as you know, continuing to clean up on schedule. We recently moved through Zone C, and we're going to maintain the cleanup schedule as planned. Lawn cutting of all facilities and also Sportsman Field has been done. Spring cleanup in the parks. There's been a bit of work in the DPW for maintenance and organization. The DPW has been deep cleaning on a weekly basis. Their building, wiping down all touch points and so forth. There is a pile building up at our brush maintenance site, and so we're looking into that. We're also tracking on and organizing all of our cleaning supplies. So there's a whole bunch of other things the DPW is doing. We appreciate their hard work and putting themselves in harm's way during this time. I'm not going to get into all of the things, but there's a 2 pages worth of things that they've been doing. From the engineering perspective, same thing. In addition to the stormwater pollution prevention plan, which has already been covered, we've been doing some capital improvement project work for Harris Ave for a base map and design for phase 2 drainage. That also ties into Buttonwood and Laurel Street, and also design work for Hunting Lane. We've been reviewing tax maps and then working with planning board to review and adhere to various resolutions. So there's a good deal of work going on in the engineering department. Like I said, they've also been working just as diligently as the DPW, so I want to thank them for their efforts. And with that, I will yield the rest of any time I have left. Back to Borough Council President Susan Sorensen.
Oh, please. Mayor, may I start?
Yeah, please do.
Good? Okay. So there you go. A couple of updates. I'll start with communication. You may have been getting your communications, the what's happening in Fairhaven on a daily basis. And starting soon, we're going to do it instead of daily. It was originally just weekly, if you guys recall, on Mondays. We're going to go back to twice. We're going to go to twice a week. So we're going to have a what's happening on a Monday, which kind of gives you what's going on for the week, and then a what's happening on Friday, which kind of gives you a retrospective backwards of what may or may not have happened during the week. So we're going to go down to 2 times a week. If we need to increase it, we will during this pandemic. But we feel that there's a lot of repeat information, so we're just kind of cutting it down to 2 times a week at this point. And then another update. Last year, the Communications Committee had requested that the every council person get their own emails, and thanks to Chris Rodriguez, he really pushed the issue this year. And you will note moving forward, every council member has their own borough email. And so in my case, it's ssorensen@fairhavenborough.net, Chris's C. Rodriguez at fhborough.net. So you'll be able to reach us there, and it actually helps with, you know, retaining records. And when poor Allison needs to, you know, gets an Oprah request, it makes it a lot easier on her versus, you know, tracking all of us down for our personal emails. So thanks to Chris for kind of pushing the issue, and Allison and Teresa for really making it happen. And I think our IT guy out of RFH really worked really closely with that. So that's the update from a communications perspective. And then from a recreations perspective, there'll be an article coming out shortly in the Asbury Park Press, kind of highlighting all the work that DJ has been doing. Very proud of him and all his efforts. So with that said, we did have a few things that happened in March. One of which was March Madness. Those of you that participated on the Instagram, and if anybody was participating or didn't see, the winner of the March Madness was the father-daughter, mother-son dances. The second place, which was a far second place, but was the second place, was the baseball parade. So that was kind of fun, and a little virtual March Madness that we did. And then we are reinstituting the daily challenges. They started on last week. The Foundation of Fairhaven will be funding this phase 2 of the daily challenges. So DJ's got a bunch that are going on. There was some that happened over the weekend. And just as a little forward thinking here, we've got today's, which was a thank you, tomorrow's. Tuesdays is a Where Am I in Fairhaven, and you have to kind of, do a little game with Where Am I. Wednesdays is a thank you to our first responders. Thursdays will be a Fairhaven Idol Rockstar version. Fridays is going to be the virtual fishing derby. And this particular one, we're going to give you till May 10th. And you can go to any area in town and fish and post a picture. And there'll be lots of different prizes, whether it's first caught or I don't know, first caught, don't count me on that one. But biggest fish and a couple other, there'll be a bunch of prizes, different ages. Then we go into the Fairhaven Kentucky Derby one, which will be fun. A Fairhaven yard shaper-upper, and then on May 4th, and that's kind of rounding out the next several days, will be, I can't believe it's May already, will be the sports skills at home or a workout at home. So we've had a lot of people that have been winning some really nice prizes. And then we have some updates. Because we've all been pretty good about staying home and adhering to what the town has requested and the state has requested and the county's requested that we do. And when you go out, we've been seeing people be extremely responsible. We are working on a way to open up the tennis courts in a very responsible manner. So look for something in the next couple of weeks. Please don't be hounding DJ about this weekend. They will not be open by this weekend. But sometime in the very near future, we're going to be rolling out with some rules that need to be adhered to. And if those are not adhered to, we're going to have to close the tennis courts back up again. So please tell your children, do not skateboard on the tennis courts or anything like that. This is really going to be for tennis players. And we really want to, give an opportunity for people to come out and be active outside in the open air. And then also our Fairhaven dock. People have been very respectful going out to the Fairhaven dock. They've been, walking on one side of the dock to the other side of the dock and leaving room for people and not, and working around other people out on the dock. But we have had a couple people that have been fishing, which is in and of itself not an issue, except for the fact that they do take up real estate. When you're fishing, you're out there for a long period of time. And you're taking up, 6 feet in one direction, 6 feet in another direction, and 6 feet behind you. And so you're really taking up some real estate out at the end of the dock. And we really want to be able to give the dock an opportunity. We want people, the residents, to have an opportunity to go out, look at the vista, and enjoy the dock. And we don't want to have to close it. And so the best way that we've come up with this is no crabbing, although I don't think it's crabbing season yet, but no fishing out at the dock. We'll be putting out signs. And if these are violated, then we're going to have to close the dock because we really just need, everybody still needs to do what the governor has asked us to do and what the borough and the county, and that is please remain 6 feet apart. So we're working on that. So those are kind of some updates from a facilities perspective. With that said, go out, enjoy the parks, enjoy the trails. And get some sunshine. Hopefully this weekend will be really nice if this weather ever clears up. So everybody, thank you for being respectful. And that's it. Back to you, Mayor. You're on mute.
Mute.
Mayor, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
There we go.
Now you're off.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda items, resolution 2020-85 through 2020-89.
Mayor,
Yes,
there was an amendment that was sent late this afternoon on the temporary budget, adding 50,000 for salary and wages of DPW,
yes.
which would then bring the total to $142,313. And then for a total in all transfers of 3,400,000, or the temporary budget of $3,456,215.29.
That'll be for 2020-87, amended
Yes.
2020 temporary budget. Okay.
Yep.
So we're all good with that?
Allison, what was the not the 3 million? What was the other number total again?
The total amount was
Yeah.
$142,313.
Oh gosh, I wrote that wrong. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here we go.
I'm sorry, Allison,
Yes,
may I ask, that was, I couldn't hear the first part. Was that for DPW salary?
streets and road salaries were bumped up to 50,000. I sent you the resolution, the amended resolution, around 3 o'clock, a little after 3 this afternoon, just so you had it.
Okay, I must have missed that. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw it in my email, but I didn't get a chance to print it out, so I appreciate it. So,
That's why I mentioned it. Okay.
Okay, good.
so moved then, Mayor. I move to.
Wait,
Hold
sorry.
on.
So, Allison, I have a question. The description, streets and road salaries, that pertains to DPW salary payment
Line item.
line item?
Yep.
Okay. You're not, okay. I think I misunderstood some of the language you used before. I understand.
Okay. We're all settled. So I have a motion from
So
Councilman.
moved.
Second,
I have a second from Councilman Koch. Are there any discussions, any questions? No. Allison, roll call, please.
Council members Koch,
yes.
Christner Keefe,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes,
Rodriguez,
Yes,
Sorensen.
Yes.
Excellent. Department reports, the police department, tax collector, municipal court.
So moved.
Accept.
So moved.
All right.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Standing. Go to the borough. Now it's time for go to the borough. Please use the raise your hand button to all attendees. And Rachel Blume is the first one up.
Motion to open, Mayor?
Motion open.
second,
Okay, we're open. Could somebody please invite Miss Rachel Blume in? She's muted.
I unmuted her.
Not showing.
Oh, she shows muted still.
Yep, there we
Hello?
go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachelle Blume. I'm at 127 Hance Road. And I just had a question regarding the tree removal from 119 Hance. I didn't know if you could give additional insight as to how many trees were being removed, which trees were being removed. As a neighbor, just kind of interested in maintaining the integrity and maturity of the landscape of Hance Road.
I can take that, Mayor, if you'd like.
Please do so.
They're proposing to remove 3 trees. One is a pin oak, which is 52 inches in diameter. One is a little leaf linden, which is 38 inches in diameter, breast height, and one is a black cherry.
You can see
Uh,
this.
And the arborist report says both the pin oak and the little leaf linden are over significant specimen threshold for the respective species and would therefore be prohibited from removal. But he goes on to say that in light of the location of the trees, which are on the southern property line at 121 Hance, they're in close proximity to the foundation overdig for the new homes. And it's his professional opinion that the ensuing unavoidable root damage of these trees would render them unstable and a threat to the property immediately adjacent to the south. In lieu of, in the removal of the trees, he's recommending that the applicant be required to install 4 4-inch diameter trees at breast height. You know, post-construction, which is a fairly decent size tree, a 4-inch tree at breast height.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Teresa, or point of information, now that we're talking about it, I'm looking back. It looks like Mr. Brooks's letter addresses 3 trees and the prior application relates to 4.
There's 3 at 119 and 1 at 121. They're adjoining properties.
I see. He doesn't, okay, that the one for 119 is not listed in that 3-pointed list. Understood. So it is in fact 4 trees, and then they require the replacement installation of 4 diameter trees. Okay.
He did, I believe he did mention the 3. He broke it down.
Okay.
Oh, wow. So it's essentially all of the mature trees on both 119 and 121 that are being removed at this point.
Right, because they're going to be affected by the new construction.
Right. Okay. That's unfortunate.
Mrs. O'Brien has her hand
I
up.
was going to say Mrs. O'Brien.
Yep. Susan O'Brien?
Oh, yeah, Susan O'Brien, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
875 River Road. I just have a question about the power outages. I know there was a widespread one about 2 weeks ago after that storm, but I, in the last 2 weeks, had 2 additional outages. They seemed to be temporary, but I didn't know whether you knew what was going on or I'm just on a bad circuit.
No, actually, Mrs. O'Brien, I asked the same question because I think I'm on your same circuit. And Teresa, I know, reached out to JCP&L. Teresa, did you ever get a response?
I have not got a response back now. I sent it to Mr. Meehan from JCP&L, telling him they're very, they're like everyone else. They're working under tough circumstances right now, and I recognize that. And I did tell him that this has been a continuous concern of the governing body and members of the public for outages that are sparse but recurrent. And I asked him if he would please address that and possibly have someone come to a public meeting to speak to the governing body.
Thank you.
Teresa,
I can actually, oh, go ahead, Ben.
the brief outage we suffered, I guess, at the end of last week, was actually a substation had a circuit breaker switch, and the new a lot of the upgrades they made post Sandy and some new switching equipment actually let them switch around that and do a changeover. So it was a transmission line, a 34.5 line, blew a circuit, and then the power was routed around it. That's why it was a brief outage. So that was actually some of the benefit of some of the post Sandy work that JCP&L did. But we're fortunate in that matter.
And Susan, I was just going to add that both myself and Councilman Rodriguez were subject to a very extended power outage Saturday that lasted probably 16 plus hours.
Oh, gee.
And JCP&L continuously reported that it had been fixed when our power was still out. And
That was on the 25th?
This was Saturday.
Yeah.
A truck showed up probably about 10 a.m., looked at the pole and left. And so, I could appreciate your frustration, and hopefully, Teresa, you receive a response.
Okay.
It's been weird too, Teresa. That's why I was knocked off. I lost power for a minute and it came right back on. And so today, that's why I was knocked off the call. It's intermittent, and it's been, I was on the phone with Ben the other day, but I think the one that Ben was talking about was the one that was what happened when Ben and I were on, and I think even Rumson went off on that one. But it's just been really weird lately. So anyway, I look forward to hearing a report.
I did copy the mayor, and he has a good working relationship with JCP&L, and I'm sure they'll take our concerns to heart and get back to us in a timely manner.
All right. Any other good of the borough? Anybody else want to be heard? Susan O'Brien, does that answer all your questions?
I just figured I'd bring it up.
Thank you very much for doing so.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else, please use the raise your hand. Okay, none from the public. Okay, Councilman Chris McKee.
Couple items. I've received some feedback about Zoom, that some portions of it are going well, others are frustrating. I continue to encourage residents to give us that feedback. I was grateful that we were able to set it up so expeditiously so we could continue the borough business in a public format to the best of our abilities. And hopefully it will continue even after social distancing or whatever the next phase of returning to some form of normalcy looks like. So please continue to give us feedback and participate in these virtual meetings. I also wanted to remind, in connection with Susan O'Brien's question, that if your power is out, please report it. The more reports to JCP&L that they have, the increased, hopefully increased response time you will receive. So that's really important. I wanted to also mention that in the future, you can look forward to a bit of a litigation update on a regular basis. I met with the mayor and Sal, our borough attorney, and we discussed this, as well as Teresa. We discussed this, and we'll be providing some information with regard to pending litigation involving the borough, which includes things like our fair share housing that is currently on the table for a fairness hearing in the coming months. So you can look forward to that. And I know that we were on the cusp of continuing to discuss a potential purchase of 623 when pandemic hit pretty hard. So I encourage people to continue giving feedback with respect to facilities and their concerns, questions, and ideas. And I know that that committee is working hard to look at all of the potential options. So I look forward to hearing more, engaging more with the public on these issues moving forward.
Is that it?
That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Councilman Mike McHugh.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a question. When Chris, Councilman Rodriguez was going through giving his update regarding the brush site, maybe Councilman Rodriguez, you could inform us. So we're finishing up Zone C, so we're about done doing the first sweep of the year, right? Well, with the bonus sweep, for some of the residents, not included. Nevertheless, doing the first sweep of the year of brush, and I hear that the site is pretty full right now. Do we have, or is there a schedule for grinding to begin?
I'll take that if you want, Chris.
Sure.
We have anticipated grinding somewhere around the middle of May. Traditionally, we grind somewhere between the middle of May and early June. We usually tie it with, I hate to say the word Fairhaven Day, but I do know that, we need to be prepared for anything that happens here in the borough, and we like to have that brush site cleaned by early June. So we will certainly, as soon as we have the dates, as always, I'll inform the residents in that neighborhood. And, you need to keep in mind that sometimes it seems like the brush site is full, fairly early, but there's heavy brush in the spring, and we still had brush left over from the prior grind. Some brush we collected at the end of last year. So, we will get that going sometime probably in the middle of May. And as soon as I know the exact dates, I'll inform the council and I'll inform the rest of the public that lives in that neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other good of the borough?
I just have a question. With respect to tree applications for tree removal, at any point in the process, or historically, has the borough ever considered having any sort of notice provisions for the surrounding properties, either at the initial application and or the appeal level?
Not currently in the ordinance, and we, as far as notice goes, it would be, if it was an appeal level, it'll be on the agenda and the residents could see it on the agenda.
Right, but I guess the question is, historically, has there ever been a consideration, or has the council governing body ever looked into putting in a notice provision into the ordinance?
What kind of notice do you want? Can you be more specific?
For example, if you are going to apply for a variance, as to your a zoning variance on your property, you have a 200-foot notice, and maybe it wouldn't need to be that widespread. And I know that that comes down from the MLUL, but with respect to our local ordinances, has there ever been a consideration that we should?
Isn't that pretty expensive though? I mean, like if I just want to cut down a tree, then I have to notice all my neighbors. It's already expensive to cut down the tree. I don't know. I'm just like playing devil's advocate here, which you often do. And so I'm just, I just think that that's an additional added expense for anybody who wants to cut down a tree. Now, if you want to clear cut, that's a different story. But I mean, I think if I want to cut down a tree in my yard that's damaged, or because I want to put an addition on and I want to cut down one tree, I think that's a lot to ask.
Yeah. Let me back up then.
Is that safety related? Meaning like if you've got a 60-foot tree and your lot's only 50 feet wide, it could move from one to the other? Because I know that across the street, the Grogans had cut down a tree that they were sharing with the Venencios, and there was normal neighbor communications going on there.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go back to my initial question. Historically, I haven't heard it, so I'm guessing the answer is no, but the governing body has never considered having a notice provision of any sort with any sort of parameters, criteria,
It was brought up prior when the ordinance first came into effect, but it was kind of like, why am I asking permission of my neighbor on something I want to do on my own property?
Sure.
And with tree removal applications that come in where there's a tree on the property line, we require a letter or something from that neighbor saying, yes, I'm okay with it. Sometimes they split the cost, whatever the case may be. But Sal can jump in.
Oh, Sal, we can't hear you.
Sal, you're on mute.
Back when this ordinance was initially discussed, it wasn't a unanimous ordinance. There were people that were vigorously against it, the private property rights, and we did discuss it, but there was not a consensus. There was actually resistance to the notice at the time. That was many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the only person is Jim, who's not on, who was the only person on council at the time. But I mean, you had John, who was like, every tree has his day in court, and you had Jim, who was
Bob Marchese was against
Bob Marchese, and Bob Marchese was, Jim, you had Jim and John on one side, and you had Bob Marchese, who's like, it's my property. Like, how dare you tell me what I can do to my property? So it's a tree on my property I want to cut down. So it was very contentious at the time. And it probably still is. I think if we were to change something, it would be a real issue.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm just interested in the background because I feel I've sat through several tree applications, and I remember one in particular, I believe it was with Mrs. Slavin, that was very contentious. And I remember it specifically because it was another circumstance where more than 2 or 3 trees were coming down on one property. And I can appreciate a homeowner's rights to do what they want with their property. I don't know that the notice provision necessarily changes those rights. And I think the governing body ought to consider at least some concepts of what may or may not be something that would be palatable to the borough. And maybe it's, if you're going to consider removal of more than any certain number of trees, you need to tell your closest 6 neighbors or whatever it might be, because I think that there is some legitimacy to how these things impact their neighbors. And we only live at our own properties, and we can drive by and check it out and see it at any point during the day, but I don't think we're able to fully digest or understand trees and where they are. And maybe it wouldn't be on the initial application, maybe it would be pursuant to the appeal process. I don't know. I think it's worth considering, and I would welcome feedback from both the public and the governing body on this.
Well, I'll say this, that after the tree ordinance was adopted, we actually had a vote. And I was the third vote to have the ordinance removed, and the tie had to be broken by then Mayor Mike Caffrey. So, you know, I think the default option you have there would be to have to get the 200-foot property list and then do a certified mail to them. And I think that would be too onerous for tree removal. Sometimes, like in the case of Slavens, there was a lot of miscommunication, there was a lot of misunderstanding on behalf of the neighbors of what was being taken down. And it was discussed during the planning board meeting for the site, I believe. But at the end of the day, the house is now built, it's occupied, and the developer did save many of the large trees there. So it wasn't as devastating as people made it out to be. So on one hand, I think it's too onerous of a burden. People do, you know, in my heart, I feel people have the right to do whatever they want with their property. By the same token, the shade and the crown mass that we have in our town with our trees is something that should be looked after and preserved. But the process is really between the homeowner and our forester, gauging the health of the trees and their future viability. So I think for right now they'll be there, but if you wanted to continue the discussion offline, we'd be happy to do so.
Thank you.
All right. Any of the good of the borough? Anything else from the public?
Then I got one thing real quick. I'll kind of end it with this, hopefully.
Yeah.
I just want to say, you know, thank you to Teresa and Allison and Melissa and you guys. You know, one of the reasons that I believe this town proved prepared as far as PPEs for all our first responders was because right at the beginning we started buying stuff right as soon as we saw it coming. We started buying stuff, and Teresa and Allison and Melissa gave me a purchase order right away, and we were able to buy stuff ahead of it. And if you look at my office here, I got 12 boxes of stuff stacked up over here. We're in pretty good shape, but I think that's because we work well together, and there was no question when I said we needed it, they would approve it, and I feel comfortable buying it. And some towns don't have that. Some towns don't have the stuff. I said, why don't you have it? They're like, we're waiting for a purchase order. I didn't have to wait for that. We had it within, you know, an hour if I needed it. So thank you, and thanks to everybody, because again, I think that's one of the reasons that I believe we're in pretty good shape. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, the chief is being humble. Yes, we did expedite his purchase orders, but he very clearly saw this coming earlier than most, and way back in December, when he got wind of this, he went out and proceeded with the purchasing, which was a huge help to the borough, and he should be complimented for his foresight.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agree.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
I only have one very, very quick comment. I just want to thank all those people in town that are doing that are making masks, and it's amazing. I think, Teresa, we've delivered almost 500, if not over 500 masks so far.
And
to
both Monmouth Medical and Jersey Shore, they couldn't be more thrilled.
And I just want to thank all the people in town that have been doing such a phenomenal job. And I've got some elastic, and I've got some more material, and please drop some more off, because we're going to do another pickup and another drop off. Teresa, on Friday I'll have more, and we'll do another drop off to local facilities, and really a Herculean effort and really a great job.
Perfect.
Thank you very much to all those people that are doing it.
Okay.
And if you want to do it, please contact me.
There we go. Okay, motion to close, go to the borough?
Question?
Oh,
When is our next meeting, May 11th?
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you. And that will be virtual?
yes.
Yes.
More than likely, given the governor's indications today, we're going to be.
or lack of indications, because who knows what he was saying.
All righty. Motion to close, go to the
So
borough?
moved.
And a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Everybody, thank you very much. Members of the council.
Wash your hands.
Al, Teresa, Allison, thank you. Members
Thank
of the public, I think at one point we had 19 attendees. We thank you all. The business shall continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Good night.
Thanks.